Welcome to another episode of the How to Do Your 20s podcast. In this episode, I'm talking with Jackie, who runs the Budget Minded Traveler blog/podcast, and she is an expert on traveling on a budget. So first off, Jackie, thank you for coming on the show. I really appreciate it.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm honored to be here.
Absolutely. So let's jump into the first question, I guess, is why travel? I mean, what is the benefits in traveling in the first place?
That's such a loaded question. Let's start with an easy one. My goodness. Why travel specifically for me? Because, my first love was learning foreign languages, Spanish in particular, when I was like 11 years old. And study abroad took me away and kind of showed me a world that I just didn't have my eyes open to. I was 18 years old, so I was like brand new. I feel like, I was a baby, and getting to see my country from the outside and getting to see how people live in other places, was really amazing and eye-opening for me right off the bat. And it was addicting, and I kind of just ran with it. And so it has basically shaped my entire adulthood. Since the time that I was, fresh into college up to now, this is what has been getting me to the next step and the next step. So to where I am now.
And on your website, you have a quote by Mark Twain, and I'm going to paraphrase the quote, and it's basically that traveling is it kills off any kind of prejudice you have, and it opens your eyes up. And that was one of the things that I wanted to add to what you said is basically when you go live, I traveled through Peru for 2 months, for instance, it makes you realize we have it pretty good. And like these other people aren't that different, I guess. So that was one of the things I definitely would add to that. I enjoy travel myself. So I'm sorry for the first hard question.
No, that's great. And that's a great quote too. One of my favorite things about that quote is the narrow-mindedness thing. It says travel is fatal to a whole bunch of things, including narrow-mindedness. And I think that's so true, because it just like puts a mirror in your face about how you live and how your culture lives, but also, you get to see so much outside, and it kills narrow-mindedness. It does, because you see it, you can't go back to that once you've seen it and have experienced it. So
yeah. Absolutely. So I guess another question for you is, how do you pick a country, or how do you recommend somebody picks a country to visit? So if someone's never traveled before and they want to figure out what country to go to, what kind of things should they look for in that country?
That's a great question, because actually there's definitely some strategy to choosing a destination. And I would say just like a few steps. Start with your bucket list, start with where you really want to go, because why not go to the number one place, so look at the top few places, and then realistically thinking, what time of year is it, and what kind of weather are you going to expect there, and what holidays are going on in that country that might totally throw you off and be way too expensive. Like there are other logistics that you can look into. Also, immunizations and visas if you're going to need anything special to get there, or if it's a pretty simple place, like, for example, Latin America, anywhere in Central America, like Costa Rica is a really popular first destination. It's really easy to travel there. Of course, you'll want to make sure that it's between January and March for the absolute best weather, So those are the things to kind of consider. But I would say aim high, like what is on your bucket list and can you make it work? And if you're flexible with time of year, and ticket prices, then can you make that happen?
I totally agree with that. I think often people overestimate how much it costs to go somewhere far away. They think, oh, Thailand, that's way too expensive, but they don't realize when they get there, they'll actually save a lot of money because it's so cheap. Or same thing, I assume, with Costa Rica. I've never been, but I've heard good things.
Yeah, actually, Costa Rica is more expensive than Thailand. The ticket to get to Thailand could be nearly twice as much.
Yeah.
But you're going to spend half as much when you're there. So you can live like a baller in some places. And Thailand's one of them.
Yeah, I love Thailand. So you have a lot of tips on how to get cheap flights. Can you share some of the tips you have for getting cheap flights?
Definitely. One of my favorite ones, the only thing, like if your listeners don't take away anything else, take away this one. Don't ever book your flight on a weekend. And I'm not talking about the days you travel. I'm talking about the days you're actually online researching flights. Tuesdays are the magic days. And I have said that for years, and it really hasn't failed me. So go with booking on Tuesdays, because the airlines basically, they'll drop their rates like by Monday after the weekend, and then they'll all start competing with each other to bring their prices down. So by Tuesday, it's usually a solid bet that you're going to be looking at the cheapest prices across the board. And then they'll start to go back up on like Thursday-ish. And so just don't book on a weekend. I always wait. I mean, you can monitor, look, throughout the week, but just wait till the Tuesday to buy. I actually just did it last week, and the ticket had been the same as I had been watching it. And then I waited till the Tuesday anyway, and it had dropped like $40, which, I mean, it's $40, I saved that just by waiting. So that's one of them. But also I like to, you should use Google Flights. It's a really great tool for showing, multiple options. And if you can be flexible, that's another huge one. Say, for example, you're going to Europe. Maybe you need to get to Italy, but Dublin is for sure going to have a cheaper flight, and then you can use Ryanair once you get there. I have multiple blog posts about these things, but, like using budget airlines to get to your final destination, if you can be flexible with where you're flying into. And Google Flights is good for that because, say you need to leave out of San Francisco Airport, you can choose SFO as your departure airport, and it'll show you all these different options in Europe of where you can go for a set of dates. So there are a couple for you.
Yeah, it's funny. Well, I used to work for a consulting agency, and they used to tell us you can only book flights on Tuesdays and Wednesdays because it's so much
Funny.
cheaper.
Mm-hmm.
So week after week, I'd check it, and I'm like, oh my gosh. On the weekends, I guess a lot of people book flights because it's the weekend, and they're like, oh, I have some free time. So the airlines raise the prices, but I
Exactly.
only ever book on Tuesdays now. So great advice on that.
Yeah, they take advantage of us, so why don't we take advantage of them? We can figure out this system.
Absolutely. Is there a system for getting cheap hotels or any ways you found to get cheaper hotels?
Yeah, actually, I'm the type that doesn't often book until the day of or the day before. And I swear by booking.com. And I'm not sponsored by them. I should be, but I'm not. So they're not paying me to say this, but yeah, I would almost be willing to guarantee that those are going to be the cheapest prices for hotels on booking.com, especially if you are last minute. They put out a lot of last minute deals, and you can grab even like a 4 or 5 star hotel for like $40 a night in some places. Not having to use Hotwire where it's blacked out and you don't even know where you're booking, but actually on Booking where you can, research the hotel, where it is, what you're getting, and you can just see the deals last minute. I have the app on my phone, and often we'll get to a new place and we'll find a coffee shop with Wi-Fi, and we'll sit down and pull up the app and find a place and book it and then go there, like within the hour. That doesn't always work, but usually it does. I would say 95% of the time it's fine to do that.
And have you ever run into the case where you get somewhere and you wait till the last minute and there's no hotels available?
No, I would not worry about that unless you are in Munich during Oktoberfest or Pamplona during Running of the Bulls, Rio for Carnival. You need to plan some places in advance for sure. But if there isn't any kind of crazy festival or some sporting event or something going on, you should be fine, really. And Booking, I mean, if you're looking online, you'll see options, however many online, but there are always going to be some that aren't online as well. So you can just open your eyes and walk around, and you'll find something for sure. Yeah, I would say the only time you're not going to do that is if it's really some crazy festival.
And what about Airbnb? Have you ever used that?
I have.
Okay.
I'm not the biggest fan of Airbnb, and the reason is because they have a really high booking rate. Airbnb charges, I'm not exactly sure what the percentage is, but it's a way higher booking fee than, for example, on booking.com, there isn't one. Even on Hostel World now, there isn't a booking fee anymore. It used to just be $2. But Airbnb, it's like a certain percentage of the total that you pay. And so you're ending up paying not your host, but Airbnb a ton of money. And I don't love that. But it really depends on the people. And I think I've only done it in Europe and in Asia. And probably 4 out of 5 experiences have been not good at all.
Really?
Bad,
Okay.
negative. Like we haven't even gotten to stay there because something happened. Yeah, and so I'm not the right person to ask about Airbnb, but that's my opinion.
Okay, I've had good experiences with Airbnb. Specifically, Hong Kong. I got a place, and on the island, it's super expensive to stay on the island. So I got a place for probably about half the price of a hotel. It was really nice. But what about Couchsurfing? Have you used Couchsurfing at all?
Yeah, I'm a big fan of couch surfing actually. I love couch surfing. I started couch surfing a long time ago, probably 6 years ago, and I have only had good experiences couch surfing, and that's the truth. I've hosted and I've surfed. I've never surfed in the U.S., only overseas, but I've always had the most amazing hosts. They're incredibly gracious people. There is no money exchange. People are interested in the cultural exchange and actually getting to know you as a person and sitting down for dinner with you. And there's so much to be said about that human connection and the experience that you walk away with after couch surfing that you're not going to get if you're paying somebody, to have a clean room or whatever it is. So I love couch surfing. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that. Part of the reason I started using Airbnb was to kind of replicate that couch surfing experience. And the problem with couch surfing, I find, is it can be hard sometimes, especially as a guy, to find someone that'll host you.
Hmm.
You have to wait till the last
Hmm.
second a lot of times. Because a lot of people are like, oh, don't send me a message up until like a week or two before you arrive.
Yeah.
And there's sometimes that I can do that. Like throughout all of South America, I backpacked and I did that. But most recently, I was in Asia for 6 weeks and I needed to do Airbnb because I wanted to meet some locals, but I didn't want to message 100 people and get two people to respond to me.
Yeah, definitely. I would say you get what you pay for with couch surfing in a sense that you take that risk by maybe not having a place at the last minute, because everything's free, and so you're not in a contract with anyone. Yeah, I'm going to be here at this time. Things can go wrong. Apparently things can go wrong with Airbnb too. But actually, the good thing about Airbnb is you can opt to stay in a place where the owner is. I think when you're going through and you're booking, you can choose whether you want them to be there or not, and that's an added benefit to Airbnb that you don't get by booking hotels. Because you can still have the local there, and there's a great element to that whole side of it. So that is also a good thing about Airbnb, and maybe it's a little bit of peace of mind for you over couch surfing.
When you travel, do you usually travel by yourself or with your husband or friends?
Um, I do a bit of everything right now. As I've gotten more into travel writing, I've taken a lot more group trips, which I absolutely love. And usually it's because I'm with a bunch of other travel media people who are similar to me. We have similar interests and we get to do a lot of fun activities. And I love the fast-paced like adventure travel scene. Otherwise, I will just travel with my husband or with friends, bring people with me. My brother likes to travel with us a lot. So I like having people around. I really do. I prefer not to travel alone, but I won't let it stop me from going somewhere.
Yeah, the reason I brought that up is that's where Couchsurfing or Airbnb for me is really beneficial. I tend to travel by myself and it can get really lonely. So that's why Couchsurfing is great. Or
Yeah.
if you don't have the time to send out 100 messages, Airbnb can be nice. But let's jump into the next question, I guess, is so now we have our flight, we have a hotel. Once you've actually landed, how do you save money on food and other things along the way?
Oh my gosh, I have a great blog post about this. It's called 21. It's like 21 ways to save money on the road or something. And it's like because this is a great question. There are so many little things that you can do um, to save money when you're on the road. Food, you bring up a good one. This one's actually really easy. Stay away from the tourist trap restaurants. And that's going to be anything with like bright, shiny lights and lots of tourists. If you're on a main road and there are a lot of, tourists inside, you're in the wrong place. Try the back alley, look for the locals. Because if the locals are there, first of all, it means it's good food and they can afford it. And so it's going to be cheaper as well. And it's such a better experience. I mean, you don't want to go to Thailand and then end up having a burger and french fries, right?
Hmm.
No. You want to get the street cart with like the best mango rice and, pad thai. But yeah, so food, that's a good one. You can also go to grocery stores and pick up snacks and stuff from grocery stores instead of going into restaurants. Um, there are a lot of ways you can save money with your money, actually, like getting a Charles Schwab bank account where they reimburse you for all of your ATM fees, for example. So you're not paying that $5 charge every time you want to take money out of the ATM. That can really add up. That plus getting a credit card that has 0% foreign transaction fees is a good one. That 3% can really add up every time. Um, and booking, when I would say booking online ahead of time, even if it's 30 minutes ahead of time, will save you money on your hotel because you'll be able to see, first of all, the amenities that you're getting. Everything's really nice and organized when you have a computer screen in front of you or a phone. Whereas when you're on the street just kind of meandering, you don't know what the best deal is. Maybe you don't know what the best location is. You can't see these things in advance. So I really do recommend booking hotels or hostels or whatever it is beforehand. It can save you a lot of money as well.
Okay, that was a lot of tips. Are there any other?
Okay.
No, that was great. Are there any other tips though before we move on that you see like the people that people make mistakes with, people spend too much money on? Anything else you can think of?
Um, I think being lazy, and I know that that's kind of vague, but if you're in the moment, you're more likely to spend more money just by giving up. Whereas if you take an extra second, check and see if there's a better deal somewhere else. Or, you can bargain with the street sellers, for example. That's what they do.
Hmm.
They're expecting it. And it's not like you don't want to support them. That's not what it's about. It's kind of a game, and you can play it and they expect you to. I mean, there are little things like that. Be proactive instead of lazy, I think is definitely an easy way to, haggle with the taxi guy. Also, that taxi's a really good one. Make sure people lose money on this all the time. Make sure they have the meter on or arrange a price ahead of time, period. Always.
Yeah, I've ran into that a couple times where I get in, and they start driving. I'm like, hey, you didn't turn on the meter. They're like, no, 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 it's okay. And I'm like,
No, it's
no, it's
not.
not. Yeah, it's
No, that's where you don't want to be lazy. Like, yeah,
yeah,
put your foot down.
yeah, absolutely.
Don't
So
let them take advantage of you.
another way, and I guess this is kind of just implied by the general budget mindedness of this episode, is taking a backpack. And one thing, as opposed to checking luggage, because if you're going to take multiple flights, checking luggage on every single flight can be quite costly. What kind of mistakes do you see people making when they're actually packing their backpack? Because I know I have a problem sometimes getting everything in my backpack.
I think the biggest mistake people make is bringing a backpack that's too big. Um, I think there's a false, like it's almost an understanding that's just false that you need to have a huge backpack if you're going to be on the road for any amount of time, really. I think a 50 is for both women and men. You don't need to go over that, a 50 liter. And there are a lot of 65s out there. Those backpacks are massive. So, for example, I'm 5'7". I'm like 125 pounds. I'm not a big girl. My first backpack was a 65 plus 10, which means it can be expanded to like 75 if you really want to do that. And you know what's going to happen, especially with ladies? They're going to stuff it full, so I'm going to be walking around with this 75-liter backpack on my back, and I'm like this, I don't have the strength for that, and neither do you, and it's ridiculous. That's the point, is like people pack way too much. So what I always say, what I always preach is, don't let the length of your trip determine the size of your backpack. Let your body size and strength determine the size of your backpack, and then fit accordingly. Pack it accordingly.
One thing I've always kind of struggled with is finding places to wash my clothes on the road. And it's not so bad in certain places, but I was in China, for instance, and I was asking everyone, where can I wash my clothes? And no one understood what I was talking about. They're like, what do you mean? And then I tried Googling it. Google doesn't work there because it's blocked in China. Do you have any tips on washing your clothes while traveling?
Yeah, actually, hostels are really great for that. They expect travelers to need to do laundry. And so a lot of hostels will have a laundry service where usually it's pretty cheap. You do it for like $5 and they'll like wash it and dry it for you and sometimes even fold it, which is pretty awesome. If you're not staying at a hostel, a lot of hotels will do it. Be careful with big chain hotels because they'll charge you by the item, and that's just stupid. I mean, you can literally go buy a new wardrobe for the same price. Which you might want to do at some point if you're ready to burn your clothes, like I often am. But No, I would say look for that in your hotels. And if you specifically need to do laundry, then get a hotel or a hostel that has that service that you know you can afford. I have used a laundromat once in Amsterdam, I think, and it was actually just super inconvenient. You know, it took a long time because we had to go and sit there with the clothes, and I would really not recommend that. Like, just find a place that has the service, and often, like in Latin America, you'll find little places all around town, just next to your hostel that does laundry, you know, so maybe it's not within your hostel, but there are some places and you don't have to be present for it. Like make sure you get the whole service.
When you're traveling, how many items of clothes do you bring? So how long before you need to do a wash usually?
So that, to be honest, that's going to depend on underwear, really,
Hmm.
because that's the one thing you don't want to rewear. You know what I mean? And so I always say bring like all your underwear, bring as much as you can, because that's going to make it like so that your desperation is pushed out as far as possible. You can always wash like one item in a sink if you really need to, if you want to wear your shirt over and over again. But I usually go in threes. So like my tops, I'll bring three of everything, like three tank tops, three t-shirts, three long sleeve, whatever it is. And then with the bottoms, I'll bring like one of everything, you know, like a pair of jeans, a pair of leggings, a pair of shorts, a skirt, whatever it is. And everything that can really be like mixed and matched. But you will need to do laundry at some point. And I would also say do it before you're desperate. Like if you have the opportunity, take it because you never know when you just might not have it again for another week or something, and you could just be desperately washing clothes in a sink and laying them out all over your hotel room, which I was definitely doing last month. So
I've run into that problem too. I've gotten to the point where it's so bad that I'm like, well, what am I going to wear while I'm doing laundry? And it's like, okay, I guess I have to wear my dirty clothes to do laundry, and then I have to wash that
yeah,
one other one. And
this was exactly me. I had one dress left. And I wore it the day that I had my laundry done because I had nothing else. You know, I washed a pair of underwear in the sink and I wore it, you know, that's what I had to wear because everything was dirty. It had been a couple of weeks. So,
in
yeah.
your book, you talk about different programs and opportunities that exist while traveling abroad. What kind of programs and opportunities do you talk about? I guess.
My favorite is Workaway. So I think a lot of people have heard of woofing, which is worldwide organization, I think, of organic farmers, something like that. Woofing, that's actually a term in the travel world. You can be a woofer. But anyway, woofing is more of the organic farming volunteering side of it. But Workaway, and there's another one called Helpx, Help Exchange. Those two are, and I think there are more up and coming like those as well, but they're basically platforms that connect hosts and travelers for an exchange. So the traveler doesn't pay any money to stay and have some sort of board provided. So whether it's just breakfast or whether it's full board, and then in exchange you volunteer your time at this place wherever it is. And literally it can be on a sailboat in Greece or like a farm in Portugal. Like it doesn't there are so many different, it's endless. It's literally endless, which is why I prefer Workaway or Helpx to woofing because woofing is just, you know, organic farming. But there are ways you can sharpen your skills. I mean, these are things you can put on resumes if you want to, and you can stay from anywhere from a month or a week to months. It depends on the host. So they're really flexible. They're all over the world, and they're usually 20 euros or something to join for like a year or two.
When you apply to this, is it kind of like a typical job where, 10 people apply and the person will pick one, or is it more you see something you like, you say you want it, and it's pretty much yours?
I would say it's a mix because it really depends on where you're going and the popularity of the host, the job. You know, so for example, if you're going to be in, let's say, on the tip of Baja in Mexico, there are like three hosts in Baja. So they might be bombarded and they might not be able to accept everybody. You know, if you're in Rome or a big city, for example, there might be a lot more opportunity. And so I would say don't bank on one working out. You know, if you have a period of time that you're going to be looking for work, I guess contact a bunch of different hosts, you know, and see who writes back and get a feel for them because you want it to be a good fit for you as well. You know, you want to like where you're staying and So weigh the options. I always look and see if it's going to be comfortable. Will I have my own room? Do I have to share a bathroom? Is it quiet? Am I going to have Wi-Fi? Keep those things in mind when you're picking, and maybe you can afford to be picky, but maybe you can't.
Last question before we start to wrap up. What are some other mistakes you see people make while traveling? And how do you fix them?
I'm going to go safety on this one. I think people get things stolen from them a lot. And I would say never overestimate the safety of public transportation. I always recommend bringing, if bring whatever purse you have, men included, make sure it zips. Make sure it zips. Bring safety pins because you can lock zippers with safety pins. You can either lock the loop of the zipper to the end, or you can just put it across the zipper anywhere and it won't be able to open. That's like a foolproof method of making the thief move on to the next person. That when you're sitting on public transportation, put your purse strap, loop it in your leg so that nobody can steal it from right under your feet, or put your backpack up across the aisle from you so you can always keep an eye on it, because someone could easily take it from over your head. If it's in the compartment underneath, watch when the bus stops and they open the door, make sure no one's taking out your backpack. Things like that's a whole bunch of safety tips for you, but that is one thing. I've never had anything stolen from me, and I do these things all the time. Knock on wood.
I lied. So last question for real this time. Do you have any general advice for people in their 20s on how they can? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. I think when you're in your 20s, you are highly influenceable. I don't even know if that's a word. So be careful who you're listening to, I think. I would say, the future of your path depends on the present, what you're doing right now. And if you see yourself traveling, don't wait. If you want to jump right into that career, that's one thing. But make sure that you're doing what it is that you want to be doing with your life, because you can get really caught up in what everybody else wants for you, and you're not going to be your best self if you're not living out your passions. I think it's a risk you take in your life. If you're not doing what you love, then you might not be doing anything at all.
Great answer. Jackie, where can people find out more about you?
On my blogs, I have two, thebudgetmindedtraveler.com. That's my really established blog and podcast that you were talking about earlier. And I've just launched a new blog called travelingjackie.com, and that's more of a personal adventure travel brand. So you can follow me around the world there, contact me there, find me on Facebook, Traveling Jackie on Twitter and Instagram. I'm everywhere.
I'll put all the links in the show notes. And Jackie, thank you so much for coming on. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Hey guys, I hope you enjoyed that video, and if you did, make sure you hit the big red subscribe button down below. You can also check me out on Facebook and on Twitter, and I release a new video every Monday, and by hitting that subscribe button, you'll get those new videos every Monday. And this is really a podcast. It's also a website. You can check out the website. It's howtodoyour20s.com. I'll put a link right over here as well. And what it's all about is trying to improve your life. And we specifically focus on things that people in their 20s are interested in. So make sure you like the video if you liked it. Subscribe. Like us on Facebook and Twitter, whatever. But I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope to see you again on another video.